When scientists and mystics start saying the same thing, you know something bigger is going on. And what is happening right now is going to completely change everything you thought you knew about reality, consciousness, and your place in this universe. Because for the first time in human history, the laboratory and the temple are arriving at identical conclusions, the same truths that mystics have been whispering in caves and mystery schools for thousands of years. Modern science is now proving them with equations, experiments, and peer-reviewed papers. And if you understand what this convergence means, it's going to change how you see everything. For thousands of years, mystics across every culture have been saying the same thing. Reality is not what it appears to be. What you see with your physical eyes is just the surface layer of something infinitely deeper. The Vedas of ancient India describe the universe as Maya, not just an illusion, but a divine play of consciousness projecting itself into infinite forms. They said what we call reality is actually Brahman pure awareness, experiencing itself subjectively through billions of different perspectives. In Kemet, the ancient Egyptians spoke of the Ka and Ba, energy bodies that existed beyond physical matter. They understood that consciousness wasn't produced by the brain, but channeled through it. The physical body was just a temporary vehicle for immortal awareness. The Taoists said the visible world we obsess over is just the surface ripples of a deeper current. They called the Tao, the source from which all opposites emerge and to which they return. Lao Tzu wrote, "The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao," meaning ultimate reality exists beyond language, beyond concepts, beyond the mind's ability to grasp it. Buddhist teachings declared that what we call self is actually an illusion, a collection of ever-changing processes with no solid core. They said individuality is like a wave on the ocean, appearing separate but actually being nothing but water. Every mystical tradition, despite developing in isolation from each other, arrived at the same conclusions. Consciousness is fundamental. Separation is illusion. We are all expressions of one unified field of awareness. Now fast forward to the 20th century, when science started developing instruments sensitive enough to peer into the quantum realm, and what they found shook the foundations of materialism. Erwin Schrödinger, one of the pioneers of quantum mechanics, didn't just discover the wave equation, he had a mystical awakening through physics. He wrote that consciousness is a singular knowing of itself. There is only one mind. That sounds almost identical to the Upanishads declaring, the self is one, all-pervading eternal. Max Planck, the father of quantum theory, said, "I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness." This dude won the Nobel Prize for discovering that energy comes in discrete packets called quanta. And his conclusion was that consciousness is the ground of all being. Werner Heisenberg discovered the uncertainty principle, the idea that the very act of observation changes what is being observed. But he went further, saying, what we observe is not nature itself, but nature exposed to our method of questioning. Translation: reality isn't independent of consciousness. The observer and the observed are entangled. Then you have Carl Jung diving into psychology and discovering the Krior collective unconscious, a shared psychic space containing archetypes and symbols that emerge spontaneously in dreams, myths and visions across all cultures. Mystics have been mapping that territory for millennia, calling it the astral realm, the Akashic records, the ancestral field. David Bohm, Einstein's protégé, developed the theory of implicate order, the idea that reality consists of an enfolded dimension where everything is connected to everything else, and an explicate dimension where things appear separate. Sound familiar? That's exactly what Hindu and Buddhist philosophers have been teaching for 3,000 years. But it's not just quantum physics. Every field of science is stumbling over the same mystical insights. Neuroscientists studying psychedelics are discovering that consciousness-expanding experiences consistently produce reports of unity, interconnectedness, and the dissolution of the ego-self boundary. Dr. Robin Carhart Harris found that psilocybin doesn't add activity to the brain. It reduces activity in the default mode network, the brain region responsible for maintaining the sense of separate self. When that network quiets down, people report experiencing pure consciousness without a subject-object duality. Biologists studying mycelial networks discovered that fungi create vast underground communication networks connecting entire forests. Trees share resources, information, and even warnings through these fungal webs. It's like the forest has a nervous system, a collective intelligence. Indigenous shamans have been saying this for thousands of years. Astrophysicists studying dark energy and dark matter realize that 95% of the universe consists of stuff we can see or directly measure. The visible universe, everything we can observe with our instruments, is only 5% of what exists. Mystics have always said the seen world is a tiny fraction of total reality. Researchers studying near-death experiences keep finding that people who are clinically dead, no brain activity, no heartbeat, come back with detailed memories of what happened while they were gone. They report floating above their bodies, moving through tunnels of light, communicating with deceased relatives. This shouldn't be possible if consciousness is produced by the brain, but it keeps happening. Even artificial intelligence researchers are grappling with the hard problem of consciousness, how subjective experience emerges from objective matter. The more they study it, the more mysterious it becomes. They can map every neural correlation, but they can't explain why there's an inner experience at all. So what does this convergence mean for your life? It means everything you've been experiencing that doesn't fit the materialist worldview. Isn't crazy? It is you accessing the same reality mystics have been exploring for millennia. When you meditate and feel like you dissolve into something larger than yourself, that's not your imagination. You're experiencing what physicists call quantum entanglement on a consciousness level. You're tapping into the unified field that connects all things. That is you experiencing what physicists call quantum non-locality, the principle that consciousness isn't confined to space and time. Information and connection can exist beyond the physical dimension. Here's where it gets revolutionary. If mystics and scientists agree, then the illusion of separation that dominates our culture is the biggest lie ever told. The idea that you're an isolated individual, separate from nature, separate from other people, separate from the cosmos, that's not reality. That is a perceptual error reinforced by a materialist worldview that is already being dismantled by the very science that created it. You're not a separate wave on the ocean of consciousness, you are the ocean, experiencing itself as a wave. And now science is providing the conceptual framework to understand it intellectually, while you experience it directly. This isn't just philosophical speculation anymore. This is the leading edge of human understanding. We were living through the greatest paradigm shift in history, the transition from seeing reality as dead matter in motion to recognizing it as living consciousness and creative expression. But here's what most people miss. This isn't just an interesting intellectual concept. This is practical information that changes how you navigate life. When you know you're connected to everything, you stop feeling isolated and start feeling supported by the intelligence of life itself. When you understand that consciousness is fundamental, you realize your thoughts and intentions have real power to influence reality. The mystics weren't just theorizing about unity consciousness, they were living it. And now that science is confirming their insights, you can meditate not as escape from reality, but as deeper engagement with the fundamental nature of what reality actually is. You can work with energy, healing not as wishful thinking, but as interaction with the electromagnetic fields that science proves surround every living system. You can pay attention to synchronicities not as coincidence, but as messages from the intelligent organizing principle that mystics called God and physicists call the quantum field. The ancient mystery schools taught that the goal of human existence is to remember our true nature, to wake up from the dream of separation and recognize our unity with all existence. Modern science is now providing the evidence that this isn't just spiritual poetry, it is literal truth about the structure of reality. We were living in the most extraordinary time in human history, the moment when ancient wisdom and modern knowledge finally converge. The laboratory and the temple are speaking the same language. Your mystical experiences aren't delusional. Your intuitive insights aren't imaginary. Your sense of connection to something greater than yourself isn't wishful thinking. You're accessing the same unified field of consciousness that mystics have been exploring for thousands of years and that science is now confirming with every breakthrough. Drop one consciousness in the comments if you're ready to stop living as if you are separate and start experiencing the unified field that connects all existence. The mystics knew it. Science proves it. Now it's time to live it.